I think it's because they don't have enough personnel. They aren't funded like they used to be.
And the "they" that he's talking about is the DNR, correct?
Pardon?
It's the DNR we're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, because they have a sign there that says it's a DNR area.
Right.
It's a little bit past the road to the house. Our house is on the right. It's, I don't know, maybe.
Now, do they still have the big wooden sign on the right-hand sign that says Patobago rather than Tobago? It has a P apostrophe and then T-O-B-E-G-O.
I don't know how it's spelled, but there's a big brown DNR
Anyway,
sign.
that's got to be an Indian name.
Yeah, it's like Peshabi Town.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you pull off there's a little area, and then there's kind of like a little lover's lane that goes back in the woods. You can drive your car on it, but you follow that back, and all of a sudden there's this little dam and this huge.
I've never been there by car, I've been there by kayak.
Okay. But it's a giant.
From Elk Rapids.
It's a giant flat wetlands that's.
Yes, and it goes all the way to Angel Road and underneath Angel Road and.
It's going to be like 100 acres, maybe more.
Well, oh yeah, it's much.
Angel and
I don't know, do you know that it's based on certain agreements, the preservation?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I read the plan. Because you tipped me off to that, and we can't just go in there and do what we want to.
No, and so for someone to complain that it's not making them any money.
I know.
It wasn't preserved to make money.
I know. Let's develop it anyhow.
Right. I'm sorry, is it time to start? Oh, not yet. Almost. Anyway, it's an interesting.
And good for you for riding your bike. That's good.
yeah, I was proud of myself.
Took his life and.
Getting up Bunker Hill was always been a challenge for me.
Well, not only.
That's my bike up.
Yeah, but
can't do it.
but if you instead. Do you know what I'm talking about on Brackett Road? No. Brackett Road is the first road north of M72 on the right-hand side,
Oh, okay.
past the entrance to the resort. So that's worse than Bunker Hill.
Is it?
Yeah,
Bunker Hill has no shoulder.
right.
And
Well, it does
everything,
now.
everything on the
But it
right,
doesn't, once you get to the top of the hill, it's gone.
it's all
Yeah.
the actual. You got to ride more towards the center. Okay, everybody ready?
Yes.
All right. I'll declare the meeting of the Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation Commission for May to be in session, and will you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Jason?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Marilyn, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, that's you.
Peter Doran,
Here.
Carl Brown, Bob Carstens,
Here.
Bill Laurier,
Here.
David Graham,
Here.
Odetta Harris,
Present.
Cass, Chris Maxbauer,
Here.
Kevin McEllier,
Here.
Scott Robertson.
Here. Thank you. I believe we have a quorum. I'll call for the first public comment. We're honored to have a number of people in the audience today, so if you'd like to address the Parks and Recreation Commission, please come up to the podium and state your name if you wouldn't mind, and tell us what you're thinking. Nobody? Okay. We'll go on. Are there any additions to the agenda? Any special orders of business or presentations, Jason?
No.
All right, then we have a consent calendar. And we have on the consent calendar to receive and file the 2012 budget report, performance measures, rules committee update, there is none, communication from Quartet Elementary School, and the Parks Commissioners meeting per diems. We also have the minutes of the April 19, 2012 meeting. Would anybody like anything removed? from the agenda? Christine?
The approval of the Parks and Rec Commission minutes of April 19th, please.
All right, we will remove that, put it under G. Anything else?
I'd like to pull the communications regarding Core 8 Elementary, just to make a brief comment.
All right, we'll put that as the second item under Agenda G. Anything else, Commissioners? Anything from the audience you'd like removed? Okay, if none, can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended?
I would make that motion.
I'll support it.
Okay, it's moved by Herron, supported by Karstens. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, under items removed from the consent calendar, we now have the Parks and Recreation Commission minutes of April 19, and Commissioner Max Bauer removed that.
Yes, as is our practice on the county board, when we are not present at a meeting, we abstain from approval of the minutes, and that's what I will be doing.
All right. Any further comments on those minutes? Would anybody like to make a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Support.
All right, it's moved by Bill and supported by Kevin to approve those minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
And abstaining is Christine Maxbauer. Commissioner Doyer asked for the Quartet Elementary School communication to be removed. Bill?
Yeah, I just didn't want to see this just received and filed. When I read it, going through the packet, I just put a note on it that this is what we're all about. It's great. It's good to hear. And
Would you like to read it out loud for members of the public?
it's addressed to the pool staff. I would like to thank you for the wonderful swim season for my class. All of my students with cognitive impairments have grown so much this year. They improved tremendously in their confidence and ability to swim. The staff has done an excellent job of genuinely caring and teaching each student. It was a joy to witness the many kindnesses shown to the students and to look at all those smiles on their faces. What a reward the students' enthusiasm was. The water safety lessons that were taught by John were right on target with what the students needed to learn and what they are able to understand. Having the canoes in the pool was the best of all, according to the swimmers. We look forward to coming again next year. Thanks for such a great year. Sincerely, signed Tony Ferris, special education teacher for students with cognitive impairments. And I should have said that it's from Core 8 Elementary on Rasho Road in Traverse City, dated April 19th. That's great.
Well, great. Well, thank you, Mr. or Mrs. or Ms. Tony Ferris, for sharing that with us and writing that letter.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would make a motion to receive and file the letter from Quartet Elementary School.
Is there support?
McElliey supports.
Okay, it's moved by Max Bauer, supported by McElliey to receive and file the letter. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're on to the director's report. Jason, would you like to report on the matters in your paper and maybe in addition to the matters in your paper?
Yeah, I'll just touch base with the Parks and Recreation Network update. I wanted to update this commission and just so you know, in future months with our Parks and Recreation Network meetings being on the second Thursday, you're going to get verbal reports from me every month versus something in the packet because the turnaround time there is quite short. But I wanted to give the commission kind of an update with what's going on in the Parks and Recreation Network. We were fortunate to have both Scott Robertson, who's a part of the Parks and Recreation Network, at our last meeting, as well as Commissioner Karstens was there to hear more about what's going on. The Parks and Recreation Network had a presentation from LIA, Land Information Access Association, discussing how they could host a website, the hub website that I've mentioned before, for all of the members of the Parks and Recreation Network. Where we're at with the network and the website is to determine a few different pricing structures and how we can make this website, which is about a $5,000 expense, affordable to all of the different organizations that are part of the Parks and Recreation Network. We had a committee that was formed to discuss that very topic, and we came up with, we decided that we're going to move forward with a survey that's going to go out to each member of the Parks and Recreation Network to find out what their organization individually, how their organization feels about the charges for this website. We anticipate it being about $250 per organization from the Parks and Recreation Network. We have about 40 different organizations that are involved and think that's a reasonable fee for the majority of the organizations. The survey that's going to go out is going to discuss Essentially, do we want to pay, does each organization that wants to be involved pay the $250 now, or do we wait a few months to find advertising to sell on the website, or do we wait an even longer amount of time to go out for some type of grant program? So we're gonna do a survey of the committee, and if we resoundingly get back that, we're gonna charge $250 per organization that wants to be involved, we're just gonna move forward with that without pursuing the advertising or the grants right now, and hold off on pursuing advertising farther down the road when we need to have a sustainable income for the website, or for grants when we need to have that, or to utilize grants for any other project the Parks and Recreation Network wants to take on. So it's kind of an exciting time. We have confirmation, if indeed it's $250, we've already have $1,750 pledged from different organizations saying that they would buy in and chip in their $250 to get the website up and running. So we've made some good progress there. We also discussed, to some degree, we talked about the Parks and Recreation Authority, the Parks and Recreation Network's secondary goal behind getting the website up and running is to be advocates for Parks and Recreation Authority. So we discussed that. I was kind of nervous initially that not everybody in the Parks and Recreation Network was supportive of discussing and moving forward with exploration of a Parks and Recreation Authority. But it was pleasantly confirmed to me by our group that the folks that are part of the Parks and Recreation Network are very much behind our local units of government to begin discussing a Parks and Recreation Authority and how that could move forward. So it's kind of exciting. That's something that the work of the Parks and Recreation Network is something that I've been asked to speak on Monday at the Placemaking Summit that's going to be put on by the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments. The summit is going to be kind of interesting. I planned on signing up for it because parks are key to placemaking, and that's a big push that we're seeing from planners and from the Michigan Municipal League right now. It was my intent to attend the conference to learn more about placemaking. About a week after I signed up, I got a phone call from the Northwest Michigan Council of Governments asking me if I could be a presenter. So I'll be presenting on Parks and Recreation and how parks play a role in placemaking locally. So it was suggested by Commissioner Karstens that I be one of the panelists to discuss that, and he thought this would be a good opportunity for me to talk about Parks and Recreation Network. So that's where we're at with Parks and Recreation Network at this point. If we get, like I said, if we get some resounding results that everybody's willing to pay the $250 to start the website, I may be coming back to you next month and letting you know that the Parks and Recreation Network has their own website. So it's an exciting time right now.
Okay, let's take this seriatim. Any comments on the report regarding the Parks and Recreation Network? I think it would be a great resource to be able to go to one website or one central area if you've got young children, or you've got, in my case, grandchildren visiting, and you want to be able to see what recreational facilities are out there and be able to look at them and see if there's hours restrictions or things like that. So I think that would be a nice asset for this community. Christine?
One of the things I noticed about our website is, out at Twin Lakes, we rent the space to campers, and it's closed when it is rented to campers. But unless you drive all the way out there, you don't know whether it's closed to campers or not. And everybody who wants to drive out there every day to see if it's closed, if there's a sign up, raise your hand, at $4 a gallon. My husband and I would utilize Twin Lakes much more than we do. We're swimmers and we like swimming in fresh water. We go down to West Bay frequently, and we've gone out to Twin Lakes, but we don't, because we don't have any way of finding out whether it's closed to the public or not. Now, I understand I can go on the property as a commissioner. I certainly don't. Hopefully that's temporary, because I think we've
we've committed to try to figure out some other ways so that we wouldn't have to close it to the public when
But
there are those
if we could
groups.
just
But is
notify
there a way,
people
Jason,
on
you
the website.
can you modify the website to put the hours of closure of Twin Lakes?
Yeah, we can certainly post that. That's one of the key pieces that the Parks and Recreation Network website will allow us to do. We have a lot more flexibility with making updates and having a calendar of events that extends out a lot farther than the cumbersome process that we have to use for our current website.
Okay, good suggestion. Any other comments on the network report? If not, Jason, the next thing?
Over the past few weeks, we've been discussing, or past few months, I guess, we've been discussing the capital improvement plan. And on your desk, the longer sheet of paper, matrix on it, is the capital improvement plan that I've put together. Over the past couple months, I've shared with you that the county has some challenges in regards to, I don't want to say it has challenges in regards to its planning, but it has very long-term plans, plans through 2025. And then there's not an intermediate plan, excuse me, to discuss some projects that are higher cost items than what our operating budget should have to handle. And that makes it kind of challenging for us to plan for some items, like some of the items that were identified in the Civic Center Master Plan. I've talked with John Syke about this, the county planner, and I've talked with Dean Bott about this, and they both suggested that I put together a capital improvement plan, a 5-year capital improvement plan for Parks and Recreation, and then utilize this to help justify funding through the budgeting process, which begins Monday. So in front of you, what I've got is on the left-hand column under projects, I've got listed the projects that I've identified that need to be done within our department over the next 5 years, as well as what facility each of those projects are located in. I've included 2012 simply because these are things that we have on the docket to get done this year.
Are those budgeted already?
No, the pool filter header is budgeted. And none of the rest of it is budgeted. The top 2 items are related to Power Island, and as I've been informing the commission, those have been items that were not budgeted, but our State Department of Environmental Quality is requiring us do for this season. The other items are things that Parks and Recreation that were identified in the Civic Center Master Plan that our facilities management crew can take care of.
Well, if they're like lowering the fence, I understand that can just be done with the existing employees. Is that right?
The removal of fence can be done with existing employees, and they believe that they can do the screening facilities management. So we know that they can remove, so the removal of fence is not on there. Our facilities management staff do not have the resources to cut the existing fence, lower it, and then reset.
Okay,
whether it's a human resource issue or whether it's a...
So is that in their budget? The $2,500 here you have for lowering existing chain link fence, is that, it's not in our budget?
It's not in our budget.
It's in facilities?
Correct.
Okay.
Are any of these in our budget versus facilities?
No.
Okay, I thought so.
All right,
Jason, I'm sorry.
Christine?
Jason, the county board did allocate some funds based on former Commissioner Clark's promise to complete the Civic Center Master Plan. Where are those funds in this budget?
This isn't a budget.
I mean, are none of these items covered? I mean, one of the things he did say when I asked him what his preference was, where he'd like to start, he said the fence. And that's why I'm asking, there's, none of that money is being put...
That's not what this plan is for. This plan is to identify expenditures. It's not, I'm not identifying revenues or where these revenues could come from. This is just identifying the projects and the projected costs associated.
Well, is Clark's stipend going to be used in some of this?
It very well could be. It'd be my suggestion to use it for, it'd be my suggestion to see what we can piecemeal together for the 2012 season. These items are smaller ticket items. I think it'd be more beneficial for us to utilize the $15,000 set aside for Russ Clark's work on this master plan and utilize that for matching funds, for grants to do some of the larger projects, because I think that's the best way for us to leverage the resources we have.
Bill?
When would you anticipate being ready to move ahead with that?
Granting projects, I'm not going to be able to get to those items until probably 2013. So it would make more sense for us to utilize some of those $15,000, that $15,000 to leverage that towards the Front Street improvements or the community events sign, because both of those things were items that Russ Clark thought were priority with that plan.
You've got Parks and Recreation Master Plan update, 5,000 in 2012 and 5,000 in 2013. Is that the DEQ plan?
That's the
the DNR?
The DNR document, yes.
The DNR plan?
And
And is that going to be contracted out then?
Based on a suggestion that you had, with possibly bringing in some interns, we've tried that in the past, but at this point, I've discussed this with John Syke as well. How's the best way for us to get that done? Utilizing planning interns versus Parks and Recreation interns. They may be able to have a more specified scope in what they're supposed to do during their internship. I think $10,000 broken down over the course of 2 different budgets is a reasonable amount to have an intern come in. But this is very much very conceptual at this point, because this is something that's just come up in the past couple weeks.
And I, for one, am very glad to see a first step in this. I think it should be the capital improvements plan for the Parks and Recreation for Grand Traverse County should be considered and ultimately approved by this body. We should adopt a capital improvements plan. But I'm unclear as to where it would then go, what the process would be. Bob, would it go to the the Planning Commission, or would it go to?
I'm not sure about that. It was only about 2 years ago that townships and counties were mandated to have capital improvement plans as part of what they do, and they were generally at their 5-year plans. And so they're just a recent kind of requirement that's required of planning organizations but of townships and the county. And John does a masterful job of putting that in place. So this is new for you, I imagine. And,
It is.
And so as far as where, obviously he's tied in and has been for years with the county budget. And so I can't answer the question you asked me. He'd have to talk with Dean Bott and with John Syke, I think, to get that answer.
Just to let the commission know where I'm at with this. Like I said, the county has a few different plans, and they have a 2025 Grand Traverse County Capital Improvement Plan that is available at the county's planning, on the county planning's webpage. And I'm just going to read the snippet. There are 3 suggestions for the Civic Center in this 2025 plan. And it mentions the Easling Pool is 34 years old, and it's, and is the highest consumer of natural gas of all county facilities. It's approximately 20% higher than a similar building according to the Energy Use Index. Talks about discussing the future of the pool, which our commission has done, and we continue to do that. It discusses the location of the facilities management at Civic Center, provides easy access for maintenance of Civic Center facilities into nearby Boardman. However, future uses of the Civic Center and the ability of facilities management to expand may be hampered by this arrangement. Relocation of facilities management, possibly Lafreniere, should be studied with the satellite operation maintained at the Civic Center. So this is identifying something that's already been identified through Russ Clark's, or this was identified first. It was also reiterated in Russ Clark's plan. And you see that at the bottom of the capital improvement plan, and it's justified, my putting it in there is justified by the Civic Center master plan as well as this 2025 plan. And then Civic Center has been one of the most popular recreation facilities in the county. In order to respond to the recreational needs of county residents, new recreational users, for example, a splash pad for children should be continuously explored, and you'll see that noted near the bottom, about 3/4 of the way down, and I've identified that being discussed in the Civic Center master plan as well as the CIP. And then this is the final part is what I find interesting. This is titled Parks and Recreation Facilities and Improvements. The plan focuses on those primary county facilities containing staff and daily operations. County parks and recreation facilities were not addressed since they are planned by the County Parks and Recreation Master Plan and individual park plans. However, parks and recreation facilities are part of the entire inventory of the county facilities and land. Therefore, park improvements and park land acquisitions should be a part of capital improvement program to address the impact of purchase costs and ongoing maintenance costs on the county budget. So they've identified in here that they're not going to address parks, but they should. And nothing's been done since this plan was adopted in 2008. So that kind of leaves us with some of our other facilities, it leaves a gap in taking care of some of the things that are listed here. As was suggested to me in putting this plan together by both Dean Bott and by John Syke, our planning director, it was suggested that this tool be utilized to show long-term planning for parks or parks and their associated facilities, and utilize this as support material to go through the budgeting process and request each of these years. So as I'm working on the 2013 budget, identify $292,000 additional going to Parks and Recreation and/or Facilities Management to complete those five projects, that are listed in the plan in front of you. So it'd be great if the commission wanted to approve this. That would be fantastic. I don't know that it's necessary.
Well, I think
but it
it's
certainly would
absolutely
give some
necessary.
support.
And I think we should have a hearing on it as well, and I think we should get other input. Bill?
I agree with that, and if that's the question, I want to go back to the Russ Clark thing, if you don't mind. His donation was very significant and impressed me a great deal. And I think maybe what we ought to do, now that we have this, is communicate with Russ. Ask him, there's a couple of different conflicting priorities here. It'd be nice to recognize him soon in 2012, or it may be nice to recognize him in 2013 with the matching grant thing. Maybe we should leave that up to him, either the president or his designee. Contact Russ,
Okay.
give him a copy of this, and then from there on, we'll have identified what it is the Russ Clark donation, because it's significant.
It's a good idea. We also have, we've got the Twin Bay, we've got the soccer group, Twin Bay, is it? We got the Legion, we've got the Nature Education Reserve. We've got all these groups that may have ideas in relation to capital improvements plan, and I think we need to solicit their input as well as the input of the public as to what's a good capital improvements plan to have. This is not a staff issue. This is when the year comes up, it is a staff issue, to try to get it in the budget. But insofar as long-range planning, this is the appropriate place for this commission to make a decision. Jason?
What you just explained should be a function of the DNR document. That's exactly what the DNR document is for, but on a broader scale encompassing all of our parks.
That's fine.
We got to get it done somehow, and we could take what we got here and stick it in the DNR document, but somehow we got to talk about what the future is, capital improvement-wise, for the county parks.
I think that's a great idea. Would it be sufficient just to put it on the agenda for next month as an approval topic? Is that sufficient for a public hearing, or do you want to have a separate meeting?
Well, could next month, could we talk about the process
Okay.
for the capital improvements and see what all you guys want to do with Jason's input as to how to proceed? Because I think we need to, as we did with the Civic Center, when we did the plan for the Civic Center, that was very public, and it was I think a good process, and we need to do something along those lines, I think, in talking about the capital improvements plan here. Plus, when we get a capital improvement, technically, if it's in the city, we should go to the City Planning Commission. If it's in Garfield Township, we should go to the Garfield Township Planning Commission, in addition to the County Planning Commission, which is, because we're part of the county. Jason? I
can do whatever the commission wants. Part of the reason one of the things that I did in putting this together on the right-hand column, the right, or the 5 columns on the right-hand side, is I've identified where the justification and supporting documentation for the needs for these projects. And if you notice, a large portion of them are specifically from the Civic Center Master Plan.
Right.
So these are items that we've already had public input on. We've had 2 different opportunities for public input.
Right.
The safety audit report is something that was generated from our last strategic plan. The 2 items that I mentioned from the county's 2025 plan are identified there, and that had public input associated with it. The ADA transition plan, that's something that should have been done. The due date for that was July 26, 1992. The master plan, we know where that's coming from, and that is the way you just described, the necessity for the public input related to this capital improvement plan is essentially what the master plan is. And I've identified the DNR document.
Okay.
I've identified that DNR document here in order for us to go through that process. The DNR document will eventually generate another capital improvement plan, and I would hope each of these are identified there. And then the last 2 items are related to requirements by the state of Michigan for us to operate Power Island. So what I tried to do is I tried to take the things that have already had public input or things that are mandated for our department to do and identify those here. And with the DNR document being a part of this, it would make sense to go through that process as part of that DNR document that's identified here in the capital improvement plan. This is more of a work plan for me. These are things that need to be done whether this board approves them or not.
Well,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
My question is, my impression is that the DNR document is dated. So is the present DNR document that we have, can it be used to leverage funding or really not because it hasn't been updated?
It cannot be because it's expired.
Okay, that's what I thought.
The data in it is accurate.
Right, but regardless of that, but its importance to us is its ability to leverage funding. And right now, because it's dated, it's useless to do that until we update it. And so I'm confused and really confused about its utility until it's been updated, number one. And then number 2, how we kind of meld it, because it's a really copious document, and to meld it into the rest of our
I think
the CIP plan and everything else.
I think if we identify that we want to do X at Maple Bay in relation to the barn, then that just gets folded into the DNR document when in the 2 years it's going to take to get that thing done. I'd like to know how you all, Kevin?
Great. I'm glad to hear this discussion about the DNR plan. A couple of things. It appears that we're in a fact-finding phase right now. We're trying to get public input and all the facts, and I'm hearing Jason say that there is a relationship to the DNR plan. And then as Bob had indicated, I'm of the opinion that I'd like to utilize that plan for granting mechanisms. And so while the DNR plan is expired, but yet we should be able to look at all the items on the left. There are some very successful candidates that could be worthy of granting mechanisms once that DNR plan is updated. So in summary then, I like how on the right-hand side you've got your supporting documentation. If we could make a column to say what items are directly good fits, good candidates for granting mechanisms relative to the DNR plan, I think that'll help get our arms around all this
Sort of a
fact-finding right now.
potential funding source. Maybe some of these are eligible for approaching the Grand Traverse Band, as Christine has mentioned, relating to some things. Christine?
Yes, there is at least one item in our master plan, Civic Center master plan, that would be eligible for grant funding from the Grand Traverse Band. The other thing, as I look at this, and it was just on my desk this evening, there are items on here that would be eligible for the DNR Trust Fund grant requesting, whatever you want to call it. But we do need a DNR e-document. I do know that another community received something similar to a splash pad, that they received their grant money from the DNR Trust Fund. And I see it's on the list here. So there are things, but clearly, you know, if with our plan expiring 5 years ago, we can't apply for anything right now.
Well, we are in the process of updating the DNR plan, in the sense that we have that as a priority. It's even down here as a capital expenditure. I'm not sure that's quite a capital expenditure, but it's a substantial expenditure. So we are going to make progress on that. But I like this because this will show what we'd like to see and what hopefully our constituents tell us that they'd like to see at these various park facilities. Is it the consensus of this group that at the next meeting, we should discuss the process for consideration of a Parks and Recreation capital improvements plan?
Certainly.
Yeah, because it'll help us move forward in a relevant way,
Okay.
if nothing else.
Can you guys see that that's on the agenda? Jason?
We can certainly add it to the agenda. I guess I have a hard time, and I would ask this commission to consider wrapping up the strategic plan, because that may refocus and reprioritize some of the projects on here for each of you. That's one of the pieces of the strategic plan, is helping bring focus and bring 10 individuals' opinions of the prioritization for projects like this within our parks into one voice, and help prioritize what type of, are they development projects that we should be looking at initially? Are they projects associated with land acquisition? And, you know, maybe we find that the commission believes relocating the Civic Center is the most important topic. But that's a process that the strategic plan should determine. And then I think it would make sense for us to have the discussion about this capital improvement plan, which these are all projects that need to be done anyway. It would help prioritize it after that. And that was my intent with us taking the strategic plan on first, is to help focus this commission into speaking in one voice and having set priorities that the group agrees to and buys into.
Well, that's what we'll discuss next week, as to whether we should wait, whether we should start it, how we should go about this. I am more prone to want to see something concrete. This strategic plan stuff, you can plan yourself into a stupor. I like these capital improvement plans because it says this thing is this year and nice, so I'm kind of leaning the other way, but let's decide this next at our meeting in June. Is that okay? Scott?
Yeah, I guess just for the sake of clarity in my own mind, since the strategic planning meeting is scheduled for June 18th and our next commission meeting is until the 21st, I guess I'm a little hesitant. I'm not sure how I feel about where this fits in terms of the logic of it. I guess I have a tendency to say I'd like to go to the strategic plan meeting, see where that takes us and how it correlates to the conversation about this before I vote on how we should move forward. Does that make sense?
Sure, but I think that if it's on the agenda and everybody decides, well, let's just hold off on this until we finish the strategic plan, then that would be the process that we would follow. I don't think that having it on the agenda would hurt anything myself.
Fair enough.
All right? Okay, that's the consensus. If the minutes could please reflect that the consensus was to have that on the agenda, I'd appreciate it. Jason, the next thing you got here is advertising at the ball fields.
A couple weeks ago, I was approached by an organization in town that wanted to sell advertising inside the arena during the expos that go on in the spring, the hunting and fishing show and things like that. Due to the lease agreement we have with Center Ice to manage Howe Arena, I told them I wanted to hold off on that, but we got into a discussion about a project that I've wanted to take on for years but haven't had the time, in an effort to increase revenue at the Civic Center, how we could sell banner advertising on the outfield fences at the ball fields at the Civic Center in an effort to create a new revenue stream for the Civic Center. This gentleman, Get in the Game Marketing, is the only organization that I know of in town that does this, and his business is based on a national organization that does this with no branches here in Michigan. So what I'm working on, and I've got an agreement tentatively in place with this gentleman. I'm waiting for some final approvals by Bob Cooney. This has been approved by Dean Bott in the event, it's been approved by Dean Bott pending Bob Cooney's approval. But this is an opportunity for us to work with Get in the Game Marketing. Get in the Game would go out, they would solicit sponsors and solicit advertisers to put banners up on the outfield fences at the Civic Center. All said, we could see profits, and this is a fairly low risk opportunity for us. We could see profits upwards of $20,000 a year for this program. It's at no risk to us, and I, as the director, have final approval of any advertising that goes out onto the baseball field. So I looked at this as a great opportunity, and it's something that, like I said, I've wanted to do internally for years, but haven't had the staffing or time to do it. But this is a really good opportunity. I looked at this as an opportunity to raise funds to fulfill some of the other strategic, or some of the other capital improvement items that have been identified in the Civic Center Civic Center Master Plan. So I'll let you know next month once that agreement's been finalized.
As you said, final approval, it's something kind of that caught my ear, and I started to think about different sets of circumstances, playing the devil's advocate of Bud Light, Camel cigarettes, the whatever, the adult bookstore or whatever, something on there. And my question is, my experience on the city is you don't like ambiguity. I mean, as a governmental agency, then you get accused of picking favorites. I'm assuming, maybe this is a bad assumption, that one of the things you'd be looking out for would be things that might be more on the inappropriate side for a family-type environment.
Correct.
Will you need guidelines of sorts to give yourself the kind of ammunition so that somebody doesn't come back and say, well, why did you let this go up as opposed to that?
Yeah, that's something that I've discussed with Get in the Game about the appropriateness for our facility, considering it's a family facility. We promote healthy lifestyles. We promote a family environment. I've taken that into consideration.
Okay, so at least it's something you're thinking about, how to make sure.
Something I'm thinking about quite heavily, in fact.
Okay.
Bill?
It's amazing, I can't remember this, but after all the years of driving my son to hockey practice, I know Center Ice has these on their inside rink. Do we have them at Howe Arena?
We do, and that's managed by ICE. It's part of their management agreement for
So
renting.
in a way, we're already in this.
Correct.
So has there ever been anything garish?
No,
Okay.
We even have advertisement in our bathrooms. so.
we do.
Yeah, that's
And
true.
it'd be very similar to the relationship we have with
Go.
Anywhere you go.
Anywhere You Go. It'd be a very similar relationship that we have with them.
Okay.
Jason, if you need some help with guidelines, I still have my former job as a high school athletic director. We sold banners and advertisement at our baseball field, our football stadium, and had some very specific, to David's point, guidelines. If you want those, I still have them on my computer somewhere. I'd be glad to share them with you.
I would appreciate those.
Christine?
I would just like to be notified who you're selling the advertising to. And I don't know how other commissioners feel about that. And the only reason I say that is because oftentimes, when the public has a complaint, our phones are the ones that ring. And I just would like to know, in your director's report, if you could just let us know, if you're selling to ABC Vitamins, whatever, just,
I'll add that as part of the consent agenda.
thank you.
This should be, the only thing allowed should be commercial advertising. There should be no religious, no political, no image or message advertising to advocate against or for different propositions.
Correct.
It should be solely commercial, and within that commercial, you should have the guidelines for the prohibiting the alcohol in the adult bookstores, et cetera. Okay? Any other discussion? So you're going to enter into this contract?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not going to see it?
You can see it after. You can
Did Bob Cooney say you have authority to do that?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. It's very similar to it's quite similar to our user agreement policy, where in a situation like this, it'd be my authority to do that, yes.
And Bob is going to review the agreement.
Yep, it's on his desk right now for review. The gentleman getting the game, he sent me an agreement, and I redrafted a new agreement based on the lease agreement that Bob Cooney created for our park use. I sent it to Get in the Game, and they had some suggestions, so I've some reasonable suggestions, and I've sent those to Bob Cooney for his final approval, yes.
All right. Any further discussion on that?
To me, this is a no-brainer. Schools are doing it, people, in these budget times, it's a win-win, it makes sense.
Nice job.
Okay. All right. Meyer House update? Oh, I'm sorry, Rodetta.
I think it's really a good idea, Jason, and I'm glad that you're doing it. I have a little sinus problem here tonight. I did the same thing at a business, and you'll generate probably $40,000 or $50,000. You'll be surprised. But my question is in the fall, the wintertime and that, will they be responsible for taking their signs down and storing them, or will you take them? Will we take them down and store them, or will they be charged a fee each season?
They'll be charged a fee each season, and Get in the Game Marketing is responsible for installation and removal at the, once it gets a little colder out, for removal
Okay.
of the banners.
Great.
Next item?
Excuse me. Just wanted to give an update on the Meyer House. Over the past few months, we've been in discussion with Conservation District about them renting the Meyer House to be utilized for their summer help or interns. And I presented that to the county commission and kept them informed of that last week on Wednesday. Last week, Tuesday, Tree Sturban, the executive director of the Conservation District, came to me and said, hey, I've got this other great idea where we may be able to utilize Seeds and possibly Child and Family Services to turn, a lease agreement with the Conservation District into a much more beneficial agreement between all four parties to not only create housing for workers at the Conservation District, but utilizing AmeriCorps volunteers, possibly creating housing for the employees who would also be a part of a program through Child and Family Services, Third Level Crisis Center, and through Seeds, helping kids that are transitioning out of the foster care system into the real world. So I had a meeting the first meeting in regards to this. I had that today, and we're looking forward to a very promising opportunity for us not to only create some benefits for the Conservation District, but for Seeds, Child and Family Services, and Third Level Crisis. So I'll keep this commission informed with that, but we are moving forward, and this is actually working out really well because we still are working on the asbestos, facilities is still working on the asbestos abatement and some renovations that need to be done to the Meyer House in an effort to make it livable for anyone. Mr.
Yeah, did the potential use by the three Child and Family Services and Seeds, et cetera, did that emerge after your talk with the county board or before?
It emerged, I got word of it the day before my meeting with the county board.
Oh, okay. And
So I asked Tree to be a part of that meeting.
Oh,
and
was he there?
Yes, he was.
Oh, okay.
And he talked a little bit more about the possibilities of working with Seeds.
What was the date of that meeting?
It was last Wednesday, so the was last Wednesday.
Kevin?
Just a quick comment. When I was first reading this, the yellow flag went up, cause for concern, perhaps a slippery slope. If we're going to be a landlord, is there a policy to deal with these situations in all fairness to future applicants? I just, wondered if there's a county policy already in place relative to tenants of our property, so to speak, and if other people are going to approach us. I just want to be proactive and follow policy or enact a policy. We're a policy enacting board. Just like the other items you had talked about, some guidelines so that you can be protected and be consistent with citizens coming to you heretofore.
I may not be following your question. What type of, I guess, could you give me an example?
Sure. Is there a policy in place already existing, or should we create one relative to landlord-tenant arrangements? It appears you're approaching here.
Is this like how they use the property or who you select that can rent from you?
Selection, correct, yeah.
Okay.
This has been an issue I've been in constant contact with Dean Bott about, and he's not showed me any policies associated with this process. This process has been driven by the Conservation District coming to us and asking if they could rent the property from us, which makes sense because we already partner, the Parks and Recreation Department partners with Conservation District to manage all of the lands, the majority of the land surrounding the Meyer House. But the Conservation District also partners and works with the Board of Commissioners for rental of the space that the Nature Education Center is in. I believe I've gotten that correct. And I don't think that, it wouldn't be my suggestion to move forward with an organization that we don't already have a quality relationship. If this commission would like to put together a policy determining who we rent to and who we don't, that's entirely up to this commission. I see this lease agreement very similar to the lease agreements we already have with T-Bays for renting Keystone, with ICE for how arena to them, as well as what we already have in existence with the Nature Education Reserve. So if this commission would like to, by all means.
Have a follow-up?
Yeah, just quickly, I didn't understand the relationship of seeds. Of course, the Conservation District has this relationship. I didn't understand the relationship with seeds and whether or not, I could name another group. Other people are going to say, hey, I didn't know this was available to us. So you're already establishing some guidelines in the policy that we have a collaborative, ongoing relationship with some of these groups already.
The lease agreement in this case would be with the Conservation District. It would not be with Conservation District and Seeds or Conservation District and CFS. It would be specifically an agreement with the Conservation District.
Bill had something, and then Christine.
No, it's been covered. I was just
Okay.
going to point out that
Christine?
we're not offering this out, to anybody that
Correct.
wants to rent a house. It's a specific lease.
Christine?
Personally, I think we do need at least one policy, and based upon, back when I was in college many years ago, and from my husband's stories, college students have a tendency to party, and I'm concerned about alcohol
They didn't at
on
the U of M.
Not at all.
That's good.
I'm
That's why my
concerned,
daughter- It's good to
I'm
hear.
concerned about alcohol on the property.
That could be handled in the lease. I don't need, and that's, there's going to be a specific lease with conditions, and I think that can be handled right now.
Well, I'm
And
just
that's-
saying, I would like to see that in it.
That's something that I specifically asked at the meeting this morning, saying, if we're talking about the possibility of having young people who are transitioning out of a foster care system, wasn't sure that, I'm not comfortable with having, kids that are aging out of the foster care system immediately moving into this house unsupervised. And that's where the work needs to be done between us, the Conservation District, and Seeds to ensure that there's supervision at the house. And where Seeds and the Conservation District are at, they're exploring the opportunity to bring in an AmeriCorps volunteer that would help stymie some of that, the possibilities, I guess, of there being any type of college-style parties there.
What you will address in the lease, alcohol on
And
the
those are
property?
Those are the things that are addressed in
Thank
the
you.
lease, just like they are with our other leases.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure the Conservation District generally has a non-alcoholic on property, and they ask us at the Nature Education Reserve to modify that slightly, but it would,
Well, yeah, I remember that,
and so,
for fundraisers.
yeah, and so I think they're on top of the game, kind of. They're pretty responsible.
Oh, I don't
Very, yeah.
doubt that.
I think it's a great idea.
All right, anything further on that? How about Power Island?
Just an update, Power Island, I think since we last met, the issues that we're having at Power Island seem to be stacking up. Since we last met, the Power Island boat failed in its first trip across from Bowers Harbor to Power Island.
This is after the
At the beginning
repair?
of May.
Because last time you said that it was in the shop for repairs. I'm not speaking in the microphone. Last time you said that it was in the shop for repairs.
It was in the shop for some hull repair.
Okay.
And we got the boat back from hull repair to take contractors over to the island. And about halfway across, the boat broke down and smoke started coming from the engine and it started taking on water. Which for about 20 minutes was a very harrowing experience for 2 of our facilities management crew and 3 contractors. Fortunately, we were able to, Peninsula Township should be thanked for doing a good job in helping and assisting getting the boat back to shore and getting our staff as well as the contractors back to shore safely. We got the boat loaded back up, and what we found is that there was some corrosion and some problems with the cylinders related to the head gasket and possibly some head problems. And the boat operated perfectly last year until we got that last storm of the summer last year. And that last big storm beached the boat and caused some issues with the water pump. So we had some work done to that, and it flooded the boat. After that storm, we took the boat in. We had it flushed and filled several times. I think we had 5 oil changes to ensure that all of the water and the condensation was out of the engine. It was done by a certified mechanic. And what we're finding now is there's a possibility that all of the condensation wasn't out. And we had some corrosion that happened, or some corrosion in the engine that caused us to blow a head gasket. Right now, where the boat's at is we took it for 3 different bids, and 2 of the bidders suggested that we needed a new engine in the boat at an expense of about $8,000. And we took it to a third gentleman, or a third organization, based on the county's purchasing policy. Anything of that nature needs to have at least, under $10,000, needs to have 3 written quotes. So we took it to a third gentleman who spent more time inspecting the engine than the previous 2, and was adamant that it simply needed 2 new head gaskets, and that he didn't believe that the heads were cracked, but the heads were sent to a shop that could run a test on them to make sure that they weren't cracked. And the cost for that is $1,800. So I've spoken.
Can you describe this boat? How big is it? What kind of boat is it?
I want to say it's a former sheriff's boat. We got this boat used from the sheriff's boat. I think it's a 92, 22-foot fiberglass boat, inboard motor. And I'm not a boater, so I apologize. That's the best I can do. I've talked with Dean Bott about this, and there's a possibility that the repair for this could be taken from some insurance funds that the county sets aside for incidents like this. As soon as the boat's out of the shop, which should be this Friday, we'll have a functioning boat for our park ranger to utilize. We're waiting on the 3rd quote. We finally got the contractors out there. Thank you to the Sheriff's Department for running our 2 facilities guys, and thanks for I appreciate the 3 contractors braving the seas with the county again to go out there to do the quotes. So we're waiting for the 3rd quote from this contractor to let us know what it would cost to barge an excavator over to the island, do some work for a day, and then barge it back. So that's where we're at with Power Island at this time. I think things are going to move forward in a positive. I hope things are going to move forward in a positive manner now. These are just some challenges that we're finding.
Any comments or questions on Power Island? or leaky boats.
Should we rename it Gilligan's Island?
For life jacket.
Any more incidents?
Jason, would you take a second, please, and introduce Marina to everybody?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you reminding me. Last month, I talked about the opportunity that the county had, or that our department had to bring on a clerical assistant, and I'm excited to introduce today Marina Rodriguez. She's been with our department for about 2.5 weeks and is doing some, she's a clerical assistant, but she's helping out with some of the projects, some of the larger projects that I have going on, and it's freeing me up to take on some new initiatives, developing a capital improvement plan, working with planning and possibly getting an intern here to wrap up our Civic Center master plan. And she's freed me up to do a lot of things that, do a lot of the larger projects that you've been asking me for and that I'd like to get completed in order for positive progress. So she's been great so far, and we're excited to have her aboard. And I know many of you welcomed her when you came in, so after the meeting, if you haven't, please introduce yourself.
Well, welcome, Marina, and if he tries to get you to go out to Power Island, wear a life jacket.
The final question, or the final...
No? Okay,
I'm sorry. The final thing in my report is one of our commissioners emailed me today asking to have a couple questions answered related to our Parks and Recreation Department selling 2 pieces of property. And the 2 pieces of property in question were Twin Lakes. What are we able to sell Twin Lakes? And without further investigation into several old deeds, because I think there are 4 deeds associated with Twin Lakes because of how the land was donated to us, that's now approximately 170 acres. If we were to, before we would be able to sell Twin Lakes as the Parks and Recreation Department or as the county, it would have to revert back to the heirs of the donors who gave the property to the county. So it would have to revert back to the descendants of Parm Gilbert and a few other folks that have donated that property to us over the years. In talking with Bob Cooney, he said it'd be awfully risky to sell that, and I've got some historical documentation that talks about Power Island, and this issue's been brought up a couple times since, I'm sorry if I said Power Island, excuse me, Twin Lakes. It's been brought up a couple times to sell Twin Lakes, and I have some documentation that shows throughout the years that there is not an attorney that would be willing to provide an opinion stating that we can go ahead and outright sell Twin Lakes. The other item was, and so I can get more information on that. I don't have anything specific, but in talking with the prosecuting attorney's office, they said it would have to revert back to heirs of the donor. The other item was what to do if we sold Maple Bay, or could we sell Maple Bay? And I can read directly from the DNR Trust Fund Land Acquisition Project Agreement. And it states the project area, which is Maple Bay and all of its acreage, and any facilities located thereon shall not be wholly or partially conveyed, either in fee or otherwise leased for a term of years or for any other period, nor shall there be any whole or partial transfer of title, ownership, or the right of ownership or control without the written approval and consent of the DNR. Later in the document, it talks about some of the issues related to violating this agreement, and I'll just read the 2 final statements here. If we were to violate this agreement by selling the property, the DNR would withhold action on any and all future grant applications submitted by the county under the Michigan Natural Resources Trust Fund and the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and would require repayment of grant funds that were given to the grantee. Just so the commission knows, Maple Bay, we received $6,816,920 in 2002 for that piece of property. So if we were to sell it, we'd have to get approval from the DNR, and
Everybody correct me if I'm wrong, but nobody on this commission has ever thought it was a good idea to explore the sale of either of those 2 properties. That those questions arose as a result of some comments made at a County Board of Commissioners meeting, and not as a result of anybody's idea here that they wanted to dispose of those properties. Is that right?
the context I was asked in was that there was discussion that was stated at a commission meeting, a
Right.
county commission meeting, and one of our commissioners wanted
I
clarification.
just wanted
on those two issues.
to, if somebody does watch this or is out in the audience, it's not, there's no idea to, on this board, to sell either of those properties.
Thank you for answering my questions, Jason.
Absolutely.
Bob?
But Jason, in addition to DNR funding, there were the funding sources that were,
The other funding sources?
Migratory bird funding plus waterfowl funding. And so would that funding have to be refunded to those dedicating institutions if we were to sell it? Are those kinds of provisions written in?
It would likely have to be paid back. The funding that was acquired through those granting agencies, if we were to sell that property, it would likely have to be paid back to each of them.
I kind of had that hunch, but okay, thank you.
Any other thoughts on that? Anything further, Jason, on your report?
Nothing else for my report.
Okay, then we'll move on to the Verizon easement at the Civic Center. This is, it's not a permanent easement that's being considered. It's an easement, it's a lease of an easement. And I believe there's about 20 more years left on that lease, if I read it correctly. So Jason, do you want to lead the discussion here?
Sure. Doug Weber's here from Verizon. Doug, if you'd like to
19.
take a seat, feel free, and make sure you speak into the mic. I think you have to identify yourself.
Good evening. My name is Doug Weber. I'm the real estate manager for Verizon Wireless here in Michigan. As you know, we're here to formalize this easement agreement for utilities that service the existing cell site that's at your Civic Center. This was a facility that we inherited when Verizon acquired Altel. We were in the process right now of hurriedly launching our 4G that you see advertised on TV and all over the country, and the Traverse City launch is coming up here in mid-June. And as part of that endeavor is imperative that we get fiber, or otherwise known as Ethernet backhaul, to all of our cell sites. So we've gotten these facilities to all the cell sites here in the Traverse City area. This is unquestionably a key site because it happens to be right in the middle of Traverse City, and is imperative for our launch. When Charter Communications went to install the fiber, it was discovered that there was not a formal easement that Altel acquired when they leased the facility for constructing the cell site. There are utilities there that serve the cell site, electric's there, current telephone services there through there. But for whatever reason, and I did not work for Altel, so I can't tell you what transpired in that whole transaction or anything. We discovered that the easement wasn't formalized, nor was there actually a good legal description of our lease area. I know there was, part of the deal was to construct the building for the Altel, now Verizon facility, is also in constructing partially a building that serves your ball fields there and that sort of thing. But there were some loose ends that were not tied up. So this document here is to formalize the easement, also formalize the lease, the specific lease area that belongs to our facility, and to ensure that we have the required access we need to continuously access our facility. Jason's been great to work with as far as getting this in place. I know he tried to call me on my way up here tonight. I think I was in a dead spot somewhere south of Cadillac.
You didn't have 4G service?
No, I did not have 4G service there. And I tried to call the number back, and all I got was a fast, busy signal, so unfortunately I didn't have any car trouble then. He showed me he did email me, and I was able to get my email, the language that was added to the agreement, which we are fine with. The only thing I would ask is, and Mr. Doran, I know you're an attorney, as am I think there might be a typo here. It's item 6 of the...
Let me read, I don't think everybody's got this, but... Do they?
No, not,
Oh.
you're the,
Okay, there's a new paragraph 6, and everything thereafter that's renumbered, because I was concerned that for 20 years, we were going to be committing this new area, a 25-foot wide corridor, out to Front Street. You all know where the monopole tower is in the center? We've leased about a 900 square foot piece of property to now Verizon for the monopole, and they would like to have an underground easement out to Front Street, going due north. So right now, it's right along the pathway, or kind of meanders along an existing pathway, so it poses no problem, but I was concerned that we're committing for 20 years to this, and I wanted at least to have the ability to have it moved if we decide that there's something else needs to go there, or we want to move a ball field or do something else. So this is the new language that was added, I guess, by Mr. Cooney. If at any time during this lease, lessor determines that it is desirable to temporarily or permanently relocate lessor's utility lines in order for lessor to make improvements to the property, lessee agrees to pay all costs associated with either permanent or temporary relocation of its utility lines and to restore the property disturbed for this purpose to its original condition, wear and tear, reasonable wear and tear accepted. So they still have an easement for the duration of this lease, but it just might be someplace else to get out to that location. So you think there's a typo in that?
You correct me if I'm wrong. It says, if at any time during this lease, lessor determines it is desirable to temporarily or permanently relocate. I'm thinking it should say lessee's utility lines. It's our utilities that are in there.
Right, you're right, you're absolutely right, that should be lessees.
Other than that, it's fine.
Okay. All right, good, that puts my mind at ease greatly.
What do we need to do in the way of action?
It'd be my recommendation, based on this conversation, and all of the items that we discussed last month at the meeting have been included in the lease agreement. It's in your packet. We've added the piece that Commissioner Doran read over, and it'd be my recommendation at this time to approve the Verizon lease agreement easement.
I would like it to sit, I'd like the motion to be to approve the First Amendment to lease agreement as presented by Verizon Wireless.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, is there a
I'll
second? Okay, it's moved by Max Bauer, seconded by Robertson to approve that First Amendment. For more discussion? How much are you paying now? It's escalating.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have the lease with me, so I don't know what the rent is at right now. If it's,
Yeah,
I hesitate
Marilyn
to-
emailed it to me, but I forgot to bring it tonight.
I don't know if
I know it escalates each year, I believe. Standard is, if it's a standard lease, it probably escalates at like 3% a year or 15% per term, something of that nature.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Will my Verizon phone work better now?
I hope so. I mean, what you'll need to do is get a new smartphone, get a 4G phone. Is that a droid? Okay,
We've all got smartphones.
There you go.
No, we don't.
Why
Some of
can't,
us are laggards.
My parents don't either.
why couldn't you go out, you do have a public utilities easement in Civic Center Drive, which runs out to Garfield. I assume that there's some reason why you couldn't utilize that, or it was some difficulty in that.
My understanding was there's no utilities that go through there. The existing utilities that service this actually go through this easement that we're acquiring from you now. And Charter has, and in fact, if you've driven by there recently, and at least the last pictures I saw of it, Charter has the fiber optic actually coiled up on the pole right at the curb at Front Street. They're waiting to be installed.
Because the diagram that has been provided by Verizon shows a public utility easement in Civic Center Drive.
And I thought, correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, because I remember, is that the one we discussed? We took the public utility portion off that.
Correct.
Off that portion of the drawing.
That was an easement for ingress, egress, and we had him take that off.
Okay, so that's just ingress, egress?
Correct.
Okay, all right.
Then the reason being was, didn't want to have to disturb Civic Center Drive, parking lot, whatever, to get to the site.
Sure, okay. Further discussion? Motion is to approve the First Amendment to the lease agreement. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Doug, are you staying in town tonight?
Yes, I am.
I think the changes that need to be made to this, I think we can make in-house.
Okay.
If it's appropriate, Commissioner Doran, could we make the changes to this agreement in the morning and stop by your office and have you sign these agreements?
If it has Bob Cooney's approval as to form on it, yes.
And it does.
All right. And he signed it. Okay, thank you.
So, go ahead.
Should we discuss, my question was going to be, as I said, we're scheduled to launch this market for our 4G in mid-June. Charter needs a couple weeks to do their work, to actually pull the fiber in. We need to get our conduit in the ground. Since you've approved this tonight, it sounds like you may sign it tomorrow. Would there be an inclination that you could authorize us to go ahead and put our conduit in the ground as soon as
Well,
possible?
from here on in, Doug, I think it's in the director's
Okay.
bailiwick, and
That's fine.
we've approved it, and the process for the contract, et cetera, you guys can work out later.
Great.
So
Great.
we're going to move on to the
So Doug, why don't we
new
talk after the
business
meeting?
and the Parks and Recreation Commission strategic plan. I think you all have a copy of this strategic plan commitment form. And we've got a date of June 18, Monday, and it's at the Chamber of Commerce building. Okay, it's not here. So, is everybody prepared to sign up for this?
Here's mine.
You want us to pass them down?
Pass them down, please.
Here you go, Kevin.
So I have a question about this.
Sure, Dave.
You did, hasn't signed
In my
this.
entire life, I've never been asked to sign a form that says I'll come to a meeting. And I'm just kind of curious what, and I mean, I've had some pretty important jobs, and I'm kind of wondering what's the, why am I doing this? I mean,
Jason?
This is, in the contract we have with North Sky, the statement of work, they identify Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation agrees to provide the following leadership and support to the project. 100% of the Parks and Recreation Commission and management staff will participate in the project. And I said to the folks at North Sky, I said, we always are shooting for 100%. And they said, maybe some type of a commitment form. So this was at the suggestion of North Sky Nonprofit Network. You've all agreed to be at the meeting, which works out really well. And I think part of the and I hope that part of the reason for that is we put it out so far in advance. So this is just reiterating that, yep, you guys committed to it. You're going to be there, so we can prepare for it.
Good. And part of that, as you've also, in that, if you read that closely, you've pledged your house as collateral, in case you don't show up.
Yeah.
Okay, anything further on that, Jason?
No.
All right.
One other minor thing. That meeting is going to be held at the Chamber of Commerce on the second floor at the Rotary Conference Room. We're going to have a conference call with some Parks and Recreation directors from a variety of different departments. We're going to have four speakers that are going to speak for less than, I think, 3 minutes each from our local community. And this should be a really good strategic planning opportunity for us. So Pam from North Sky Nonprofit Network is going to send a doodle poll to Marina. She's going to forward that all out to you for our second meeting in order to start planning well in advance for the second meeting related to this planning session as well. So just wanted to make you aware you're going to get another doodle poll. That's for the second in this series of meetings, which should be 2 meetings long.
The quicker I can get a doodle poll, the better, because my summer is pretty.
We're going to try and have that for you tomorrow.
But Pam isn't going to be the facilitator for our meeting, so.
A lady named Judith Linden. We're going to have 2 facilitators. The person that you're going to see in front of you on the 18th will be Judith Linden now.
Okay, any questions? Anything further? All right, we will move on to the attendance policy that we have here. You've got the resolution regarding the attendance policy. Marilyn also put together a history, at least since January, of the attendance. And I assume, Rodetta, did you hand out the Commission on Aging?
I did.
Okay. You've got the Commission on Aging attendance at meetings policy as well, which is much more definite, I think, than the county general policy, which just talks about excessive absenteeism. So what is your wishes or thoughts?
Well, I'd like to follow this policy that I presented. We have a couple lawyers, teachers, social workers, so forth and so on our board. They need to be certain places at certain times, and we don't like to not have a quorum. And that really doesn't happen maybe once a year. It's set up at Section 5. Well, it's more than just this one page, but pertaining to us. Remember, Jason, do you want to go ahead, because I shared this with you?
Sure. This is an example of a policy that Rodetta shared with me from commission, or shared with us from that they utilize at Commission on Aging. I assume that this is a part of the Commission on Aging's bylaws,
Right.
which would be appropriate if this commission felt it necessary to develop a stronger policy that would coincide with how to contact and when to contact the Board of Commissioners for them to enact the policy that I have in your commission packet, which starts on page 37. The actual portion related to attendance at meetings is on page 40. This commission would certainly be welcome to do that. If we change our bylaws, it'll have to be introduced, the language would have to be introduced at a meeting, and have to be reread at the second meeting before it can be approved. So it would be at least two, and if that's what this commission would like to do, I would certainly recommend that process.
Christine?
One of the things, our process at Commission on Aging is if you, as the piece of paper that Rodetta handed out states, after 3 meetings, we address the absences. And how we do it is we direct the chair to have a conversation with the individual, and we've only had to do this one time. We have outstanding attendance at Commission on Aging boards because when we make it quite clear that attendance is expected. But the chair speaks to the individual who is not attending meetings, and I would say unexcused absences. We had one instance where one of our board members was caring for their spouse who was terminally ill, and she was excused for several months. We've had cases where we understand there's an excused absence. But if there's not a reason and it's continual, then we ask the chair to address it. And I think it's an excellent policy. We've had to use it once, and it worked extremely well.
Would you like me to do that in this case?
Well, I will say that, just in case anyone doesn't know, if they didn't read the paper this morning, Carl Brown is right now at a road commission meeting where they are reviewing their director's performance. So Carl couldn't be in 2 places at once, and just as a note for him, in January, he lost his father. His father had passed. So he was at a funeral. So those are 2 of his absences.
Would you like me to contact Rebecca?
Well, I think it's appropriate. She's been to 2 meetings this year.
Can I make a comment?
Sure, Dave.
Okay. I guess I'm hearing what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with you at all. I like the idea of kind of I think we're all professionals, and I assume that people are going to carry out their duties, and if they're not, I like the idea of it being handled not in this form.
That's correct. Just ask the chair. It's a policy.
Right.
He picks up a phone and says,
Yeah, and I think that's the best way to handle it. The one thing I wanted to mention, though, is I'll just speak for myself. When I was considering my time commitment as becoming in this position, I was knowing that I was going to commit for once a month. And I figured there might be a periodic meeting every once in a while that I might choose to attend if I was able to. There's been some meetings that have been during the day, and I work a half an hour away. And I guess I draw a distinction in my own mind with my original commitment to attend a monthly meeting. If there happens to be other meetings that are scheduled throughout the year, I try to attend those, but I put those in kind of a different category. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that was a naive.
So you see the regular meetings as being different than these special things?
I do. And part of that could be when those other meetings are scheduled. Certainly that was the case for one that I'm thinking of. And I look at my absences here, and I'm sensitive to that, and I think, I'm trying to remember the date, and if that was one of those that,
I think it was.
yeah, I'm actually trying to remember that first one. I thought I was at it, but I'm sure that, records are records, but anyways.
Bill?
I just want to reinforce, I don't know that we need to formalize this. I do think absenteeism needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
But, for example, I've been on this board, I think, a little over 2 years. The first 2 meetings I missed are on this sheet here because that's the
this
time.
only goes back to January.
Yeah, that's the time period we picked. But yeah, if we have someone who's missing on a regular basis, I think the president needs to address that. I don't think we need to make that a formal policy. People usually, when something like that comes up and it's pointed out to them, they'll resign or improve, whatever. But that's what I'd recommend, is we just.
All right, I'll try to talk with Rebecca and let you guys know the results.
I'm just,
Well,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I don't know that you necessarily have to let us know the results. As long as you let us know you've had the conversation and you've addressed it, that's enough for me.
Okay. Be self-evident.
All right,
I say it should go in the bylaws, and I say the reason I'm saying that is because this board is due to change anytime. It's changed often and frequently, as you all know. It gives us, you can call somebody and they say, why are you calling me? I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I've never seen that anywhere. So it's like it's on paper, it's black and white. It gives you a reason to make the call. And that's it. It's no big deal, but it's there.
And when people, that is a good point. When people do sign up to apply for the board, as they do with Commission on Aging, because we make it absolutely clear, here are our bylaws. You miss 3 meetings, and the chair is going to give you a phone call. Attendance is expected.
well, we don't know that there isn't extenuating circumstances here either,
And that's
so.
fine. But Rodetta makes a good point, that if it's in writing, people know.
But if you don't know, you should know, because they should have had the
Yeah.
courtesy to call you.
Yeah,
and
actually,
let
this
you
is the
know.
first time that I've seen this resolution that was in our packets. I don't know if you had all seen that before, but I was not aware of that, so it's good that we got that out.
So I'd like to see a motion for it to be added to our bylaws, and no matter who's on the board, 5 years from now or something, they've got something addressing attendance directly.
All right.
And also a reason for the chairperson calling.
Scott?
I would just, I guess I take pause in the actual wording of this particular recommendation, because as I read it, members shall be required to attend a minimum of 9 board meetings per year, shall not be absent for more than 3.
We don't have that many.
There are extenuating circumstances that happen, and then what? If you're required to attend 9, you don't make it to 9, you make it to 8, and you had very good reasons for missing the other 4, are we then painting ourselves in that corner saying we've got to rid ourselves of that person?
To me,
Is that, you got any more? You done?
Yeah.
Okay, Bob.
to me, the next sentence says, the executive committee may.
Yeah.
And then a little farther down, that these minimum requirements may recommend removal. And so to me, that opens the door for listening to extenuating circumstances.
Which we have.
And so I was against this until I read the whole thing. When I read the whole thing, it seems to me that it does express in a little more higher expectations than the one in place for us at this time. And so that doesn't hurt because it isn't absolute. You got those words may, and so which indicates that there are often extenuating circumstances. And so I don't particularly object to Section 5 because of that.
Well, like Christine
So-
said, it happened one time, and the person was traveling all the time on trips. I mean, that was just more important than...
And it says
We even have telecommunication, and they didn't want to be bothered.
And it still requires a vote.
And
So
they-
the majority have
and they-
to have
and
to
they
vote,
chose
so it's
to
not
leave.
automatic or anything.
You know, they did, they chose to leave.
The Section 5 here couldn't, I don't think automatically fit into our bylaws. It would need to be massaged somehow because it says 9 board, with a capital B, meetings, and then it says not absent more than 3 committee meetings per year.
Yeah, we have committees in
You
Commission on
you
Aging.
have more
Yes.
committee involvement there.
And attendance is extremely
So-
important at those, because if we don't have enough attendance, we don't have a quorum, and we've all driven
So-
for a meeting for nothing.
So there is nobody currently holding office on this organization that has been, who who could be said to have not attended 9 board meetings of this
Well,
board
yeah, it needs to be-
within year 2012.
Well,
Right.
we wouldn't even,
So, I don't-
if
you know, I think
we
you
add
need
that
to-
to the bylaw, if we add that to the bylaws, it'll start from the time that we get it in the bylaws. It won't go back to
Well,
January, we didn't have it.
It doesn't, right, but it doesn't talk about what the year is, whether the year is the calendar year, which I assume that's what it is. So,
It can be anything anybody
would
wants.
not-
This is just it was just a baseline to make it a little more factual as to what is expected.
I would not be in favor of, myself, of changing the bylaws until and if it becomes more of an issue. I would be in favor of just trying to address it informally first and see what happens.
Well, I
But if
have
somebody
a
wants to
question.
make a
Have you
motion-
addressed it? Have you addressed this with anybody?
No, I just saw this tonight.
Okay, so you're
So,
going to address it with
Yes.
somebody then?
Yep, I will call and try to talk with her. But if you want to make a motion to amend the bylaws, you'd be perfectly in order to make a motion to amend the bylaws. I mean, that's your prerogative.
Well, I'll make a motion to add it to the bylaws, the attendance policy.
Is there support?
I'll support for discussion. Rodetta, are you saying, not word for word from
No.
Commission on Aging, because it doesn't apply, but are you saying that you don't miss any more than 3 of our regular meetings a year?
2 meetings to do bylaws.
I would say 3 regular meetings a year. I understand that these couple guys here teach school, and it's hard for you to get to some of the extra special meetings, that we have. I understand that. Your day doesn't end at 4 or 5 o'clock. Lots of times you have the students for something later on. I understand that. To me, that would be an excusable thing. I mean,
So your motion is to add this, but limit it to regular meetings?
yes.
Okay, under our bylaws, I don't have them in front of me, but Jason's nodded his head that it takes 2 meetings to amend the bylaws, so your motion is to introduce at
the
this
next
meeting, and if that passes, it'll be considered at the next meeting for final approval. Is that clear to everybody? Okay.
And so somebody would be presenting
A formal,
a formal draft of language.
Yes.
May I make a comment now? I would have to sit down and think about this with a cup of coffee or something. And so maybe it's just more language than what's needed, but I kind of like the except for a good cause that's in the current language. And I'm not sure, whoever sits down to tries to pen this together, they might consider, I don't know, maybe it's not necessary. I will say that I don't have a problem with, as long as we're distinguishing regular meetings from committee meetings, it seems reasonable. And I like the may part, so that doesn't seems to provide a lot of latitude. So I could go either way, I don't feel.
Well, could I ask Rodetta, if this passes, could you put it in a clean format, I guess?
Surely.
Limit it to regular meetings and show us where it would go into
Surely.
our bylaws and numbering system? Okay, thanks.
One last question. Jason, you've been doing this for a number of years. Has this ever been an issue where this language would have been helpful? How many years have you been?
I've been the director I've been with the county for 5 years, been the director for 4.
Okay, so is this something, are we inventing a solution for a problem that doesn't exist on this board, at least up to now, perhaps?
This may have been, we may have been able to use this in the past, yes.
Okay,
This would be beneficial.
In your opinion?
In my opinion, absolutely.
Okay.
I would suggest that one of the things to consider is that the language say something particular to members shall be required to attend a minimum of 9 monthly commission meetings and shall not be absent from more than 3 special meetings per year. We're on slate, we're targeted right now to have 5 special meetings this year. Between the 2 for the organizational capacity assessment, we're looking at 2 for the strategic plan, and if we have a special meeting for the budget, that puts us at 5 special meetings. I would throw that out as an idea. That's entirely up to this commission.
Bob?
I'd like to see everybody to be able to attend to special meetings, but I think if you're going to include those as being necessary to attend, then they should be scheduled at times that wouldn't be the ordinary person's workday, because we want to have more than just retirees on this commission. There's people who have regular jobs and stuff they have to go to. And so if these special meetings are scheduled for weekends and what have you, or in the evenings, then to have them mandatory, a certain number to be attended, that's okay with me. But I don't want to see everybody up here with gray hair.
Well, now I'm confused. And I think that, part of what I'm supposed to do is to make sure that things that you act on are very, very clear and everybody understands what the thing is. So I'm going to rule the motion out of order and ask Rodetta to bring it back next month and have it in writing to have exactly what she's proposing. And then we can consider it at that time, because to act on it now with all these different, ideas going on, unless you can put an exact wording down right now, I would ask that you just bring it back next month.
I would ask that Jason puts an exact wording down right now. He has the previous experience with, we don't have a quorum. And he just stated a very good idea, in my opinion.
Would it be okay if I don't want to put him on the spot right now to draft something, could he bring it back? I mean, there's no harm in waiting a month.
Or he could just repeat what he just said, which makes a lot of sense.
I didn't understand what he said, so.
I'll put something in writing and propose it.
Thank you, I'd like to see it and mull it around.
Okay.
It'll be included in your
A
packet.
board is only as strong as its members, and, if you can't make the time to get there, maybe you shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
Because we need a really, really strong board here. And sometimes people miss things, and it's understandable.
I think we all agree with that. I think that we all agree with that. The question is, yeah, exactly,
Right.
what is the wording going to say? Okay, so we'll have that, I'll just rule that out of order for the minutes purposes, and Jason will come up with some language, put it in our packets, and then we can massage it and act on it next month. Okay, second public comments. For the second time tonight, we have no public comment. Notices and commissioner comments. We've got our notices regarding the strategic plan meeting. Christine?
this would come under Commissioner comments. I would just like to offer congratulations to our fellow Commission on Aging board member, Al Pedwaden. He has been elected the new Grand Traverse Band Tribal Chairman.
Oh, great.
And he will be
He's on your
sworn
board.
in a week from Friday. And I have to tell you, when he walked into the Commission on Aging committee meeting this morning, everybody gave him a standing ovation. He is an outstanding individual, and he is going to do he's done a sterling job for the Commission on Aging.
You're going to see a lot of changes.
And the Grand Traverse Band is extremely fortunate to have him as their new leader.
Great, thanks for sharing that. Anything else? If not, oh, there is, Mr. Carson.
Well, I'd just like to say that it was nice to have somebody as young as Rebecca Cass on this commission, because she represented a different demographic.
She hasn't gone yet.
Good.
And no one's insinuating that she should be.
Okay,
Please don't think.
but, right, but anyway, I would just like to see that someone representing something besides us older folks.
Good idea.
Because she
Maybe-
brought a perspective and some ideas that were really good, so, anyway.
An absentee policy doesn't, make anybody, it doesn't make anybody be gone. It makes
Right,
them be
right,
a
I
little more
understand.
aware.
I understand that. I just
Yeah.
wanted to make that statement.
Okay, any other statements? If not, we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Sure.